This is my new motorcycle. Well, it's an exquisite piece, it really is. But I thought I would start off by talking about this bike's fascinating history. So, it was bought in 2016 by a man called David Martin, and he bought this bike as an ordinary motorcycle enthusiast in order to get into biking and use it as a commuter. However, 1 month later he was diagnosed with bowel cancer, and he basically didn't ride the bike for 18 months, and he came close to the edge of his existence during that time. After his chemotherapy and treatment and all that difficult stuff you have to go through if you have cancer, he actually had the strength to go from Land's End to John O'Groats in Scotland on it as a charity venture for cancer. And David Martin, he's still undergoing sessions of chemotherapy because the cancer hasn't fully gone away, and obviously it's a horrible disease that you can get. Other than that, the bike has spent the next 5 or 6 owners under an electric blanket. It's been looked after, it's been serviced, it's had brand new tyres, all the accessories that you need, a USB power socket and heated grips. And among the many reasons of my choice, one of which is idle curiosity. I mean, I've been looking at this bike for 125cc Biker YouTube channel. I've been looking at this bike for a number of years now, before I actually did my first CBT. And just the fact that it's an adventure bike and it's a 125 at the top of the 15 horsepower limit, and I couldn't do my full test this year because of the virus. I'm going to blame the virus. So the next best thing was to get this, sell the Yamaha, get one of these. So I've been looking at the Honda Varadero 125 extensively. I just wanted something that had the most grunt, the most power I could get out of a 125, and the Varadero is a V-twin, and it's known for it's not as quick as this one, is what I'm trying to say. And the power is actually very comparable to my Yamaha. The peak torque for me, I get most of it around 7,000 RPM. It really takes off, which is nice, because on my last bike you had to rev it all the way 10,000 to actually experience the pull. But yeah, this is it. I had doubts about the quality of it because it's Derbi, not Yamaha. Yamaha's very refined. But it's not all about refinement. It's about the adventure. And this is that you're buying a bike like this, you're embodying a different culture. And I mean, it's one of those bikes that you can just get on, fuck off to Cornwall or to John O'Groats or wherever, and you'll be comfortable. And you have good wind protection, you've got a good screen, good road presence. No rider aids, which I think is a good thing because I'm still learning. I want to know how to handle the bike without ABS. And speaking of handling, it's got a 21-inch front wheel, 17-inch rear wheel, which is just really nice and stable. It's got a long wheelbase, which means that you can cruise at 70 quite easily. The only thing is wind. It is affected by wind because it's quite light. It's about 130 kilograms. I did some research about Derbi, and so they were their own thing in Spain until I believe it's 2001, where they were sold and bought by Piaggio, who actually made these bikes themselves. So I had doubts about the quality and the kind of engineering and refinement of it. So I just said to myself, I've got to get one that's really like well looked after and good previous owners, because a lot of the problem with 125s these days is the previous owner. Funnily enough, I bought it from another David, Polish guy, who bought it for his girlfriend because his girlfriend did her CBT and she didn't actually like it because it was too high and the brake lever wasn't long enough or whatever. So he had to sell it on. So it's a carburetor bike, it's Euro 3. At first I was quite sceptical about buying a carburetor bike. However, they're not all that bad. I think there's a lot of stigma around them because of their potential unreliability. For me personally, I'd like to learn about carbs and how to maintain them and the symptoms and actually the engineering of such an amazing thing. It's all mechanical. It just works. And my kind of idea about EFI bikes is that when they go wrong, you've got to go and get them looked at by a professional, and that's costly. I'm not saying that EFI bikes are amazing and refined, and I mean the fuel consumption on this, I don't want to talk about it. It's basically the same as a 1200 GS. You're paying for the experience. Funny story, when I picked this bike up, I actually ran out of fuel, because basically the fuel reserve light is, well, I made a video about this when I stopped and broke down. Here we have the Derbi Terra 125, which I've just bought. Actually, I say just. I bought it about three and a half hours ago. I've ridden about an hour and a half, and it's run out of petrol. Because basically it scared the shit out of me. I thought it broke down, but I've been talking to the previous owner, and it turns out that he actually unplugged the low fuel light because it was playing up, so he unplugged it. So now you don't know when the reserve light is on, so you don't know when the bike is in reserve, and this is what happens. It's wasted 4, potentially 5 hours of my day. Other than that, it's an amazing bike. I had a go cruising at 60, 70, and the ride is phenomenal. The handling's good. It's got a larger wheelbase than the MT125. It's happy to cruise at like 70, and the 21-inch front wheel is just phenomenal. Both wheels, the size of them means that you can ride really comfortably. You don't have to worry too much about potholes. It's an incredible bike in that sense. So that's what happens when you run out of fuel in the middle of nowhere. I learned many things from this. One is if you have you have to diagnose the problem, and if you have any like suspicions that there's something wrong that needs fixing, call recovery as soon as possible, because they delay. Insurance companies and recovery, they'll take their time and they'll just talk to you for hours and hours on end, asking questions. They're not providing the services. I asked for petrol to be brought, and they didn't even ask the guy to bring any petrol. The guy had to go to his mates and get a jerry can. So yeah, the problem was that the previous owner wasn't communicated that the fuel reserve light had been disconnected. So I'd like to connect the fuel reserve light to see if it's to see what's wrong with it. Other than that, you just use the trip mileometer. It does about 120, 130 miles to the tank, so it's 40% as efficient as the Yamaha MT125, which is, I'm not going to talk about it. I guess I can pontificate a bit about how it handles. Starting off, obviously it's very smooth, very planted, very comfortable seat. That's one of the things that was a major fault with my previous bike. A few weeks ago, someone commented on my videos explaining how this bike is, its drawbacks are existent because it's designed for a young market, young audience who want it to look sporty. The pegs, seat and handlebars are laid out so that you're at the front of the seat, leaning forward, which makes you feel sporty. However, that's what is uncomfortable. That's what creates the uncomfort, is the fact that you're at the front and you're constantly trying to push yourself back, and that kind of causes the strain and then back pain, and this is quite uncomfortable on the gentleman's area. So this is the opposite. This is actually designed well, I think. And yeah, the pegs give you a seating position that's much better. It doesn't hurt your gentleman's area as much. The front suspension is non-adjustable, non-preload adjustable, and it does dive on braking, which is what you can expect from an entry-level, well, I don't know, an adventure bike. And I mean, it's an adventure bike. It's like a GS. You can just get on it and it can do things for you in real life, and you can enjoy it as well. It's practical. It's got a screen, it's got extra storage. You can use the pillion seat as storage, and the top box does not look bad on a bike like this. Now, in terms of filtering, a lot of you might think that it's actually quite cumbersome to get through traffic, but I think otherwise. You can go really extremely slowly on this without losing stability. It's got that real ability of a tortoise, and it's suitable for all conditions: rain, wet roads, tracks, all that stuff. It's manageable. And then it will do this for you. You can cruise to the national speed limit really comfortably. Obviously you've got very good wind protection, which allows you to go on long journeys without any strain or fatigue. Another thing is road presence. It looks like a big bike, and I think you'll be respected more on the road as a result. It's actually not bad at all for filtering. These mirrors that I've changed the mirrors, but they're nice and high up. They kind of go above all the other cars' mirrors. Oh, come on, mate! Come on, you... Oh. I had a big bike day of training when I got to ride a Honda CB 500F. And what I will say is that this handles a lot like it. The clutch is actually quite similar. It's got a very nice gradual biting point, and it just feels like a bigger bike. It handles better, I think, than my last bike, which is good. It gets me ready for the test whenever I can book it. Go on, mate, go on with your custom scooter exhaust. Do I plan on taking it off-roading? In the long run, yeah, I'd like to experience it off-road. And it's in such good condition that there's a voice inside me telling me not to take it off-roading because I want to keep it pristine. Much like Royal Jordanian, who learnt on an enduro bike off-road. I think off-road riding is a great way to be really in touch with the bike and the controls and the handling. I think that'll make you a better rider, according to RJ.